Yo, what is going on, guys? J.Yumeko here, and today we're back with some more Root Double Before Crime After Days. Now, yes, I've been gone for a long ass time, maybe like 2 weeks or more. A lot happened. So yeah, no, I got slammed at work, slammed at school. I got fucking sick, which was awesome. I'm still getting over that, by the way, so if you hear me coughing throughout the video, that's why. I have a whole bag of cough drops next to me. And yeah. So, before we jump into the video, which, if you want, I'll put a timestamp up so you can just skip to this, but I do want to give a little bit of an update, as far as this channel goes. So, I do think I'm going to probably bring back the channel to, like, 2 series, or 2 games per, you know, because I was kind of trying to juggle a lot of games at once for a while there. I had like, 4 games going or something like that. I don't want to do that. I just want to like chill and be able to actually enjoy the games without having to space them out for ages on end. So as of right now, the series are Root Double Before Crime After Days, and then The House of Fata Morgana, Requiem of Innocence. So those are what we're working with here. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So pretty short, but again, I'm sorry that it took so long to come back. I mean, like, it was at a point for a while there where I just didn't want to do, like, I just didn't want to do, anything. I would get all my work done, I get all my schoolwork done, and I would just, come home and just go to bed or just watch a movie and then go to bed. So, but yeah, we're back. Area 3 Inner Ring B2. So, a little rough catch up here as far as my memory will allow me. So obviously, we are trapped down here. We're trying to find our way out. There's someone or something running around that has been killing people, which has been very apparent. Our little group here is kind of slowly, I wouldn't say splintering, but there are some cracks starting to form with how long we've been in here. We've had multiple, like, lights at the end of the tunnel kind of crushed, in terms of, we think this could be an escape route. Okay, well, now it's fucking destroyed. We just recently found a whole big box of, that life-saving drug, which I forget what it's called. But we left it out for some reason. We left it out and unguarded, knowing, even though we had a whole conversation, that there could be somebody running around killing people and being hostile, but we left it out, and now it's all fucking gone. So, so there's that. There's this whole thing going on with our main characters' memories being lost, and then now we're kind of slowly regaining them. There's a whole lot going on with the dynamic between all the characters and the relationships that we do and do not know about, and yada yada yada. So there's this is constant action here. But the group right now, we're outside the surveillance room. Watase moved to open the door, but then he heard a voice from the inside. I think right now we're coming back from the bathroom. We just had a little episode where we regained a lot of memories. Just then, she started talking again. Oh yeah, and then also they're starting to kind of become wary of us because we did something. Like, we did, like, it's at a point now where we're not 100% sure whether we're like a good guy or bad guy, right? Because there's been some suggestions here and there that we have done things that at least make us look hostile or not trustworthy, but we obviously can't remember what that was that we did, or what the context of it was. No. He couldn't hear the voice behind the door all that well, but it seemed like she was talking to someone. Watase restrained his confusion and opened the door. Oh, maybe we're not at that point. But that's still going on nonetheless. Kazumi shouted at the same time Watase opened the door. She then looked at the group, and her face froze over.
それに皆さんも。
立花、一人か。
Ah, so who are you talking to? Kazumi was the only one in the surveillance room.
そうですけど、誰かいるように見えますか？
見えないけど。
俺はてっきりお前が誰かと言い争っているかと思ったんだが。
それは無線です。
無線？
はい、先ほど一瞬地上の誰かとつながって、しかし。
Okay, I mean, like, we know that she's lying. So we're back to this. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around this system. So in terms of the sympathy, I guess it'd be the difference of, do we press the issue or do we think like, oh, well, she must have had a reason? I want to press the issue personally. So we have it saved. If it goes wrong, we'll come back. Yes, I got in touch with someone on the surface just a short while ago, but the reception broke up right away.
思わず待ってと叫んでしまいましたが。
Kazumi looked at the floor as she relayed all that in a feeble voice. Is that true? Wadase looked at Kazumi dead in the eye and voiced his doubts.
立花、お前何か隠してないか？
え？
俺は確かにお前が誰かと話している声を。
ですから無線です。
Okay, well, this is just blatantly obvious you're lying now. Kazumi said that in a low voice, as if to ward off Wadase's questioning.
隊長は私を疑うのですか？
Yes, I am. Wadase thought he saw a dim light burn in Kazumi's eyes for a second.
いや、疑ってるわけじゃないが、もし一瞬でも無線が使えたというのなら、試してみる必要はあるかもな。
さっきは何かの偶然だと思いますが。
それでも繋がったんだろ？
He felt he was being a bit mean, but Wadase still asked. Things were bad enough as it was. He didn't want to doubt Kazumi of all people on top of that, so he kept the seeds of doubt from sprouting as much as he could.
そう思われるのでしたら、どうぞお試しください。
Huh. Wadase nodded and took out his PDA. Oh shit, what the fuck? He felt he was wasting everyone's time, but he tried radioing the commander just to be safe. But he couldn't get in touch with him no matter how hard he tried. All he ever heard was the sound of static and nothing more. So, does that mean Tachibana really was lying? But Jun and Ukita impatiently spoke up before Wadase could think any more.
隊長、そんなことしてる場合じゃないんじゃない？
Listen, I like Kazumi and all, but that's a little bit weird. That's a little bit strange.
そうとも確認すべきことは他にあるだろう。
As if we needed like another potential reason to distrust other people in the group.
ああ、
Wadase still wasn't satisfied with the situation, but he put his PDA away nonetheless. I was trying to douse my suspicions, but it feels like all I did was make them worse. Wadase glared sternly at Kazumi, then spoke.
ところで、立花、お前 AD をこっちに持ってきたりしてないよな。
え？それはどういう意味でしょう？私はここに来てから一歩も外に出ていませんが。
そうか。
何かあったんですか？
実は脳科学実験室に置いてあった AD が誰かに持ってかれちまったみたいなんだ。
え？
それで監視カメラ映像に何か残ってないか調べてみようと思ってな。
Oh, that's right. No, yeah, because she's in here because I think she like hurt herself. So we just had her kind of wait in the security room. Wadase looked at Kazumi when he said that. Knowing her, he figured she'd readily comply with their request. However,
AD が、そう、AD が亡くなったのね。
立花。
Kazumi then answered without looking at Wadase.
隊長、残念ながら脳科学実験室の近くに生きている監視カメラはありません。
そうなのか。
私は徹底的にここにある撮影映像をチェックしていました。
Okay, so real quick just to butt in. She's talking to somebody, but there's nobody in the room. And I find it interesting that when we entered and said, oh, were you arguing with somebody? She was like, why? Does it look like there's somebody else in here? Right? So we know that there's these like telekinetic powers. But it's interesting. So it's possible a couple things. For one, she has some way of communicating, she has some device or way of communicating with somebody else in the facility via, conventional tool or piece of equipment. Or it could be that via the telekinetic powers, she's communicating with somebody else. Whether they're transmitting to her and then she can communicate with them back that way, or whether she's transmitting to somebody else, or however that would work. So there's definitely, but it's just weird. I can only assume that they're talking about us, but it could not be us. It could be whoever this other person is running around. So I guess right now really the biggest question is just who was she talking to, because there's only so many people that are gonna be down here. I mean, we've very thoroughly checked the entire area. We know the students are running around somewhere. We know that there is a killer running around somewhere. So I'm more inclined to think that she's maybe communicating with one of the students, just because we've seen that Anna, the teacher, has some kind of thing going on. Basically, my point is, so far, a lot of people here seem to know a lot more than they're letting on. I mean, like I said, we know that Yuri seemed to know something about us that caused her to want to run away multiple times, and which ultimately led to her now having disappeared. We know that Anna had some kind of potentially previous knowledge about what was going to happen here from the students that are now running around. And so that's why she ended up here. So, I mean, it's definitely not an out there
生きてい
prediction.
るカメラは第1エリア外周灯に2つ、第2エリア内周灯に2つ、第3エリア外周灯に1つ、それから第4エリア外周灯に1つと第6エリア内周灯に2つだけです。
第6エリア内周灯？
はい、非常階段のところと通路に1つずつです。
じゃあそれにユーリが映ってないか？
ユーリさんですか。ユーリさんが単独で映っている映像は残念ながらありませんでしたが。
待て、第6エリア付近で映っているはずだ。
なぜそう思うのですか？
Ukita answered in what to say instead.
いやね、彼が第6エリアの非常階段でユーリ君の死体を見たというのだよ。
ユーリさんの死体？
まさかと思って僕らもその現場に行ってみたら何もなかったんだろうね。
だが監視カメラの映像を見れば俺の見たものが本当かどうかわかる。20分ほど前の映像だ。
わかりました。
Oh, this will be good. Kazumi said that, then replayed the surveillance camera footage. Archive footage showing the emergency staircase in Area 6's inner ring played on the monitor. Watase and Ukita soon showed up. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the monitor.
そうだ。俺はここでおっさんと別れて。
The footage showed Ukita walking away from Watase, followed by the latter climbing the rope. Watase soon finished up his search of B1 and came back.
この直後だ。俺はここで足を止めてユーリの死体を見たんだ。
Watase leaned forward. However, the footage showed Watase heading straight out the stairwell without stopping. The timestamp displayed on the monitor was 13:49:19. The time matched up with Watase's memories, but
死体見つけてない。
どうして？
Watase muttered that, then heard a low voice behind him.
隊長さん、どういうことか
Oh,
ね。
fuck. That was not good. Watase turned around in surprise to find Ukita scowling at him.
どういうことって？
死体を発見するどころか素通りしているじゃないか。なぜ嘘をつくのかね。
Hey, to be fair, if I was lying about this purposefully, why would I have been so adamant about dragging us to the surveillance room and checking the footage, right? Like, come on. Watase couldn't answer that question.
おかしなことはもう一つある。この映像の時刻だ。13時49分。この時刻に君は階段室を出て行ったようだが、君がファクトリーに姿を現したのは13時55分だったのだよ。
何？
浮田さん、それ本当？
ああ、腕時計を見て確認したから間違いない。
Now that I thought about it, Ukita did say You sure took quite some time, but something happened when they regrouped in the factory. Watase had thought the time lag had been because he'd been shocked and out of it from finding a body, but
内州島からファクトリーまで歩いて6分もかかるわけがない。空白の6分間、君はどこで何をしていたのかね。
いや、あの時は死体を見た直後で動転していて。
Okay, so now I guess the sympathy meter would be whether we concede to Ukida's questioning or whether we put faith in ourselves. That's a tough one. Okay, to be fair, Ukida does have some valid reasons. I hate him. I absolutely hate him, but he does have some valid reasoning here. I mean, it's tough because with the presence of what is essentially supernatural superpowers, it's kind of not even out of the question to say, well, maybe somebody tampered with the the camera footage. Maybe it is as simple as, yeah, I just blacked out, had a fucking hyper-realistic hallucination, and then came back, right? So, I guess part of it at the end of the day comes down to, like, are we the good guy? Are we, can we trust ourselves? Is what's happening here. This is really tough. I do not know which way to take with this. On one hand, I probably would realistically be with Ukida on this one, especially after having seen video camera footage that the recounting that we told was not true, like, at all. But then at the other side, on the other hand, we played as Watase. So how reliable is Watase's narration in and of itself, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we are playing a game. We're a third party looking in on this. So it's kind of that break of how reliable and trustworthy is the narrator. I'm gonna put faith in myself. I believe that we can come out of this.
はっと気づくと内州島の廊下を歩いていたが、どこで何をしていたのかまでは。
だがその事実はなかった。そもそも死体なんて映像に映っていないじゃないか。
違う。俺は確かにあの時。
Okay, so there we go. His memory of finding Yudi's body was still crystal clear in Watase's mind, but his subjective memory had been smashed into pieces by Ukida's rebuttal and the objective video footage.
どういうことなの、隊長？
どういうことだって？そんなものは決まってるさ。彼は嘘をついていたんだよ。
嘘ですって。
ああ、ありもしない死体を見たなどと言って、それを言い訳にファクトリーに来るのを遅らせたんだ。そしてその隙にこっそり AD を盗みに行ったんだろう。
Oh god, I might have fucked up here. Everyone gasped at Ukida's accusation.
違う。そんなわけないだろう。
では6分間も何をしていたというのかね。この一刻を争う状況下で。
Watase instinctively fell quiet, overwhelmed by confusion.
どうしたの、隊長？なんで黙ってるの？隊長は私たちを騙してたの？
違う。本当に何が起きたのか俺にもわからないんだよ。
なるほどなるほど。自分が信じられないか。それもこれも記憶障害のせいというわけか。ならばそれもいいだろう。だがね、それは同時に君が今まで語ってきた言葉のすべてが信頼性を失うことと同義なのだよ。
何？
先ほど AD が亡くなっていさかいが起きた時、君は僕らを戒めたね。自分は犯人じゃないという顔をして。だがありもしない死体を幻覚を見るような人間の言うことをどうやって信じろというのだね。 君が AD をどこかに隠してそれを忘れているだけかもしれないじゃないか。
バカな、そんなことあるわけがない。俺は正気だ。
正気ならば君は嘘つきということになる。
Excuse me.
死体はなかったし AD も君が盗んだんだろう。
It was then that Wadase realized it. Whether he was sane or not, it didn't change the fact that either way, his words were no longer trustworthy.
お待ちください。問題はなぜそんな奇妙な嘘をついたのかということですが。
Yes. Listen, Cosme, I know I was doubting you just a second earlier, but thanks for jumping in.
さあだがそう考えると彼の全てが疑わしくなる。例えばそう隊長さんが戻ったと言っていた記憶が真実なのかとかね。君は要救助者を助けるため地下に降りてきたという。だがそれもまた嘘で、本当は別の目的のために降りてきたんじゃないのかね。
別の目的って。
決まってるさ。殺人のためだ。
Okay, buddy. Alright, buddy. Wadase gasped with shock. Ukita continued.
そうこれはテロなどではない。計画的な殺人なんだよ。
Ukita, you're starting... Oh, God.
例え
I
ば
hate
こん
this
な
guy.
推理は成り立たないかね。君は同僚の堂島隊員に対し何らかの理由で殺意を抱いた。そして災害現場で殺害することにした。火災がひどい場所で殺してしまえば死体は焼けてしまう。そうなれば事故死ということで片付くだろう。そう考えた君は今回の事件を機に計画を実行に移した。だがそれをあの2名の研究員たちに目撃された。そして口封じのために殺したんだ。
I don't know. No, that didn't happen. You capping, twin.
檜山隊員は辛くも逃げ出したが結局火に巻かれて死んでしまった。ことによればユーリ君も、そしてリフトのところで死んでいたあの子も目撃者なのかもしれない。ああそうだ、君が会うたびに逃げられてる三宮君も目撃者の一人かもね。
やめろ、そんなのデタラメだ。俺がそんなことをするわけないだろ。
したという保証はない。だがしなかったという保証も一
Hey,
切な
man,
い。
innocent until proven guilty, you fuckwad. Kill yourself, bro.
そのことは君自身が重々承知しているんじゃないのかね。
Wadase looks around, seeking help. He locked eyes with Cosme. A troubled look rose to her face.
立花、俺はあの堂島という隊員を殺したいほど憎んでいたのか。
わかりません。
わからないって、そんな素振りがあった。
Oh, what? What happened? Wait, what? Wait, hold up. What? Okay, whoa. Okay, chill, game. Damn. Okay, I hit J on accident. I guess that just skips. Okay, I didn't know that. Well, we know that our choice was wrong, but I'm gonna go back and play through that again because... What the fuck? Alright, let's see here.
はい、先ほど切れた瞬間、
I'm gonna press
思わず
V is what it
待ってと
was.
叫んでしまいました
Okay,
が。
so we did this. Yes.
隊長
We suspected Tachibana.
え、
Yada yada yada. Blah blah blah.
有利、
Okay, I'm gonna just do this real quick.
内州島からファクトリーまで歩いて6分もかかるわけがな
Fuck
い。
you, Ukita. You're freaking dog shit. Boom, boom.
だがそれをあの2名の研究員たちに目撃された。そして口封じのためにことによればユーリ君もしたという保証をその
立花、俺はあの堂島という隊員を殺したいほど憎ん
Alright,
でいた。
so this is what it's like now. So we'll just kind of see what happens.
わからないって、そんな素振りがあったかどうかくらい。
わからないんですよ。
Those words sent blood rushing to Watase's head.
そんなわけないだろ。俺も堂島隊員もお前たちの同僚じゃないか。なのに何もわからないって。
But before Wadase could say any more,
わかるわけないじゃないですか。あなたは自分のことを何も語ってくれないんだから。
Kazumi interjected with a stinging voice. Wadase gasped. Kazumi stared at him with dull eyes.
記憶喪失になる前のあなたは人と距離を置き、自分が何を考えているのか誰にも語ろうとしなかったんです。
自分のことを何も語らないって。
はい、まるで。
何か後ろめたいことでもあっ
Jun finished the sentence that Kazumi had bitterly begun weaving.
後ろめたいことってなんだよ。
Jun answered Wadase's obvious question in a dry voice.
さあ。
さあってお前。
いや、そういえば私も隊長のプライベート。
See, look, this is all Ukida's doing. He's fucking planting shit into people's head because he's probably the killer. Fuck you, Ukida.
仕事のつながりしかないからさ。
Wadase was astonished. He thought that Kazumi and Jun would trust him, just as he trusted them. Yet they didn't trust not only the Wadase without his memories, but even from the him from when he had his memories. This isn't happening. Wadase's feet started shaking. Jun glared at him and spoke.
隊長、私たちには本当のこと言って。本当は何が目的で地下に降りてきたの？隊長が持ち場から離れるなんて本来なら絶対ありえないんだよ。ねえ、教えてよ。隊長は人の命を救うためにここに来たんじゃないの？もしそうじゃなかったとしたら私絶対隊長を許せないよ。
Anger was slowly building in Jun's eyes. No, it wasn't as simple as anger. It was the intent to kill. Jun glared at Wadase with bloodthirsty eyes. He wanted to say she was wrong, but he couldn't. He knew anything he said here would sound hollow. Yet he tried to say something, but then...
隊長、あなたは本当に記憶を失っているのですか？
立花。
申し訳ありません。ですが、森部の言ったように、あなたの行動は不可解すぎるのです。あなたはあの時、堂島と檜山に呼ばれて地下に降りたとおっしゃっていましたが、通常そうした場合、あなたは私と森部に現場へ向かうよう指示しなければならなかったはずなのです。ですが、あなたはそうしなかった。隊長、お答えください。あなたは
Bitch, I don't know. How many fucking times do I have to say this? You found me! Like unconscious. You've seen me pass out multiple fucking times. The calculating look in Kazumi's eyes pierced Wadase's heart.
それは。
Wadase desperately tried to remember in detail what the situation had been back then, but he didn't know anything. His memories of that time were completely gone.
答えられないのですか？
すまない。
わかりました。
Kazumi breathed a heavy sigh, then signaled at Moribe with a glance and spoke.
森部、何か縛るものを用意してください。これから隊長を拘束します。
Strain. Wadase didn't understand the meaning of that phrase for a moment, but that moment was long enough for Jun to pull a cable line under the control panel.
浮田さん、これ使ってもいいよね。
ああ、この際構わんだろ。
Jun then cut the cable loose with her army knife once she'd received Ukida's consent. Said cable was more than long enough to tie someone up. Don't tell me there.
冗談だろ。
Kazumi then looked at Wadase with a cold look in her eyes and spoke.
ただでさえ何が起こっているかわからないこの状況で、あなたの存在は著しく秩序を乱しています。よって容疑が晴れるまであなたの身柄を拘束させていただきます。
They then restrained Wadase's body with a cable, tied his hands behind his back, and brought him to a laboratory on B2 of Area 2's outer ring. Kazumi looked Wadase dead in the eye and spoke.
立花、本当にこれでよかったのか？
Wadase looked into Kazumi's eyes with a heartfelt yet pleading gaze.
隊長、 そんな目で私を見ないでください。もし隊長の容疑が晴れるようなことがあればすぐに拘束を解きに来ますから。
Kazumi said that, then left the laboratory as if she were running away from him. The other members soon followed suit.
核兵器が開くまでせいぜいじっとしているんだな。
隊長、変なこと考えないでよ。もうこれ以上隊長にひどいことしたくないからさ。
隊長さん。
And left Wadase alone in the laboratory.
ちくしょう。
Hey, notice that in none of that was Enna involved. Enna was Enna was not throwing accusations. She was not being all suspicious about me. Like, that's because Enna's a real one right there. That's because Enna knows that I didn't do that shit. He instinctively cursed. To be abandoned by the comrades he'd been through thick and thin with, like being cut off from the world itself. But he could understand why they were nervous. The fact was that his actions before he'd lost his memories truly were simply too unnatural. The incident with Yuri in particular had been fatal.
隊長、あなたは本当に記憶を失っているのですか？
Kazumi's cold glare was still burned into his brain. But what was I supposed to have done? He didn't have an answer to that. And so time flew by as Wadase kept pondering questions like that for a while. About an hour passed. It was about time to take the AD again, but Kazumi and the others hadn't come back. Just then, the light suddenly went out with that announcement, leaving Wadase in darkness and confused. What in the world is happening outside? 2 hours passed. Wadase had already thrown up several times, likely due to the effects of radiation exposure. Yet his nausea just wouldn't go away, and his headaches and the numbness in his skin only grew worse with time. Damn it. Enough is enough. Without the willpower to speak, Wadase had to settle for cursing in his head. Wadase felt goosebumps spread all over his body at that sound. Were those gunshots? What happened? What's going on out there? Anxiety swiftly filled Wadase's heart.
おい、誰か近くにいないのか？誰かここを開けてくれ！
Wadase started shouting outside as his panic grew worse and worse. Soon enough, Jun opened the door.
隊長。
She staggered into the room on unsteady feet.
森部、何があったんだ？さっきの銃声は何だったんだ？
But Jun cut Wadase's bonds with her army knife without another word. Her face was unbelievably pale. Her pained breaths made it even clearer that she wasn't her normal self.
森部。
Wadase called out to her in worry, only for Jun to pitch forward. Wadase immediately caught her.
おい。
His palms were damp with something sticky. It was blood. Lots and lots of blood. Wadase then noticed that Jun's back was being stained red by a large cut that was ripping right through it.
森部、お前。
隊長、逃げて。あの子が。
Jun wheezed out of breath before she could say any more. And with that, she stopped moving altogether. She didn't respond to him. He could tell Jun's body was losing heat and fast.
森部、しっかりしろ！森部！
But Jun didn't move.
嘘だろ。悪い冗談ならやめてくれ！
Wadase silently prayed as he checked Jun's vital checker. All red. That signified death.
森部、そんな、どうしてこんなことに！森部。くそ、誰が森部をこんな目に！
Wadase ran out the room, desperate for answers. What happened here? What in the world has been happening in Lappa while I've been locked up? He then randomly ran around and eventually ended up in a connecting passageway, only to find Ukida sitting against the well. Wadase had a bad feeling about the situation. He could see a pool of blood spreading in front of Ukida.
Osa!
Wadase ran up to Ukida and touched his shoulder. When he did, Ukida's body fell to the ground sideways without offering the slightest resistance. There was a giant, deep cut stretching from his right shoulder all the way to his heart.
Osa! Oi! しっかりしてくれ!
Well, Ukida, look what happened when you fucking threw out wild fucking accusations at me, and then turned everybody against me and had me tied up. But Ukida didn't answer. Watase just then noticed that there was something in Ukida's hand.
どうしておっさんがこんなものを
The pistol in Ukida's hand was a totally different model from the one Anna had given him. Watase looked around to find there were bullet marks in the nearby walls and floors.
それじゃさっきの銃声は
Ukida had probably been trying to fight off someone with that pistol, but he'd been no match for them. He had been slain in one mere strike, and his wound looked identical to the one on Jun's back, which means that the old man fought their attacker here to give Jun time to escape. But even though he was no expert with guns, he could have avoided all the old man's shots and killed him like this. No way. Several scenes of all the death Watase had seen in this place went through his head. Is the one who killed those 5 now on the move? Then the fact that the same killer had murdered Ukida and Jun meant... Shit! Are they trying to kill us all? Watase then gasped as it finally hit him.
だとしたら橘と先生も危ない
Watase left Ukida's corpse behind and ran through the connection passageway. But what he found waiting for him was... Watase was immediately rendered speechless when he entered the inner ring. The whole floor was covered in spreading blood. Kazumi was lying face up right in the middle of it.
橘
Watase ran up to her and held her in his arms. There was a large vertical cut across Kazumi's chest, the same kind of cut that Jun and Ukida had. Rivets of still warm blood poured out of it. So then what about Anna?
私
Kazumi was still breathing faintly.
橘待ってろ今すぐ治療してやるからな
But Kazumi kept talking deliriously as if she didn't hear a word Watase said.
私ごめんなさいあなたのこともっと信じてあげられなくて
Kazumi's life grew fainter with each word.
橘もういいもういいからそれ以上喋るんじゃねえ
見えないねえどこにいるのいや私もう一人になんかなりたくない
It seemed that Kazumi's eyesight was rapidly failing.
橘俺はここだここにいるぞ
Watase looked into Kazumi's eyes as he desperately called out to her. But she just looked up at the ceiling meaninglessly. And then, all of a sudden, something shined in her eyes. Is that something silver? At the very moment Watase realized that, something smashed right into the top of Watase's head, making his entire world shake. A second later, his brain went haywire. Split. Head's been... split. Brain's been split. Damn. Strange sounds came out of his mouth. Just then, something was ripped out of his brain and let out a sound as it hit the ground. At that moment, a memory forgotten flew right past him. He didn't know when it was from. Watase miraculously regained his ability to think soundly just then. Tachibana will be killed too if I don't do something. Watase then held on to Kazumi with all his might in order to protect her. And with one final blow to the head, his consciousness was blown to smithereens. Hold on, let's go to the log. Okay, fought. Okay, so it says, fought I, a child high schooler, shot at him with a gun? That bastard fried brain. Huh. You know what? Fuck them. That's what they goddamn get. Okay. Well, we will go back and see how we can fix this, I guess. That really pissed me off, dude. I mean, come on, man. Come on. Which one were we at? Oh, clearly this one, I guess. Boom.
はい、先ほど一瞬地上の誰かとつながって、しかしすぐ途切れてしまいました。
Okay, is that true? He wondered for a moment, but decided to not against prying any further. He didn't want to make the doubt still palpable with their group even stronger. He just chalked it up as yet another bizarre incident. Wadase then moved on to the pressing issue at hand. Okay, we didn't bring it in here. We lost it, yada yada yada.
内州島からファクトリーまで歩いて6分もかかるわけがない。
Alright, let's see what happens if we have ours lower.
空白の6分間。
いや、はっと気づくと。
嘘、それ。
違う。
Skip all this.
だがそれをあの2名の研究員たちに目撃された。そして口封じのために殺したんだ。ことによればユーリ君も、そしてリフト。
Oh, what the fuck? Dang, we lost a lot of fucking favor with a lot of fucking people. Oh my god. Anna -1, Cosme -3, June -3. Or does that happen either way? It had been for a second, only a mere second, but he had indeed suspected that. A lot of things were strange from the beginning. The reason Sully kept running away from me was because she was running from me. No way is that true. What is looked around seeking help?
俺はあの堂島
We're
と
gonna
い
set
う
them
隊員
higher
を
than myself.
殺したいほど憎んできた。
わからない。だって隊長は
自分のこと。
記憶喪失
I
に
never
なる
talked
前
about
のあなたは
myself.
自分。
He put distance.
仕事。
It was only on a work basis. Let's see.
ね
He tried to say something, but just then...
待ちなさい、二人とも。
Anna, my girl! What, okay, what did I say just before? Oh, hey, you know, Anna was the only one who didn't, you know, wildly and blindly accuse me of this or that. That's because she's my girl right now. That's why. Anna spoke up.
あなたたち、少しおかしいわよ。
何
ああ、実に正論だったと思うがね。
それがまともじゃないって言うのよ。あなたたち、隊長さんに何度も助けられたんじゃないの？なんなのよ。AD が亡くなった途端、手のひら返したように。
Thank you.
それとこれとは話が別だよ。今の話聞いて、どうして椿山さんは隊長の味方するの？よく、まさか2人はグルだったとか？
何を言ってるの？
That sudden accusation left Anna with a confused look on her face. But Ukita kept up the assault before she had time to counter.
そうか、なるほど。道理で行
Oh my
動がおかしいと思った
god.
ら。
Listen, I get it's the whole thing of, oh, intense, you know, life or death situations, people get unreasonable, you know, Lord of the Flies. But this is ridiculous. Come on now.
ようやく分かった。君たちは2人だけで助かろうというつもりなんだな。
Yeah, Ukita, we're planning to leave the rest of you to die. Yes, you're correct. Oh my god, how do you discover this?
AD を隠したのは君たちか。2人で AD を独占しているんだ。
Ukita and June were glaring at Wadase and Anna. It was just then that Wadase finally realized it. Their eyes were full of madness. This isn't good. And they really are out of their minds. Now that he thought about it, there were numerous factors that could be behind it. Their hours of built-up fatigue, the multiple strange happenings in this place, the feeling of entrapment from being stuck down here, the despair of not finding an exit, the fear from finding all those bodies, and then the loss of the AD had driven the final nail into the coffin. That one act had dramatically shortened the group's lifespan. It's impossible to expect anyone to remain calm in these circumstances. Ukita and Jun prowled towards them. Just then, a voice echoed in Watase's head. Yes, let's go. Come on, Teach. Let's get out of here, girl. Watase came back to his senses and took Anna by the arm. But at that moment,
逃げるつもり？
いかん、取り押さえろ。
Jun and Ukita sprung at them. But Watase and Anna barely managed to dodge them in time. Get fucked, bitch. Jun and Ukita slammed into the monitors. But they quickly turned around and glared at Watase and Anna. Watase instinctively looked away, only for his eyes to return to Kazumi. Kazumi was looking towards the exit. She then gave Watase a glance as if to say run.
先生、逃げるぞ。
Watase took Anna's arm and ran out of the room. Let's go, I'm escaping with my baby, my honey. See, I knew I liked Anna for a reason. I knew I liked her. From the start. From the start, baby.
くそ、見失ったか。
行ったみたいだな。
Watase and Anna had escaped their pursuers and were now hiding in a room in Area 2's inner ring.
急に怖い雰囲気になってきたわね。
無理もない。急に死が目の前に迫ってきたんだ。怒りと焦りで錯乱するのもわかるさ。
Okay, so we know from our last death, in 1 hour, the power is going to cut out and it's going to switch to emergency power. And then we know that then an hour after that is when whoever the killer is going to really start going crazy on us.
そうね。でも本当に危なかったわ。
Now, a couple of things. When Jun died in our arms, she said she referred to whoever did this to them as she. The only person who we didn't see killed and cut up and murked was Enna. Now, I have a couple theories. I forget how pre-established this was, but I do think that whatever this, I mean, like, I do know that whatever is out there stalking us is not human, right? Like, this is not a human that we're dealing with. I think the entity that we're dealing with is just as supernatural as the telekinetic powers that, you know, people in this world have. So then on top of that, I think that this person can actually manipulate you into going crazy, right? So it is, you know, and you know what? Let me piece together some things. Let me try and, you know, throw some puzzle pieces together. See how this lands. Before we entered the security room, we heard that Kazumi was talking to somebody. It sounded like somebody was trying to convince her that presumably we had done something, likely something bad, that we weren't trustworthy. But she didn't seem to be fully buying it. Now, it's very possible that somebody is communicating telekinetically to our group individually and talking into their minds and basically trying to turn them against us, or just in general turn the group against each other, right? So I think that if that is the case, then that's probably why Ukita and Jun had that quote-unquote look of madness in their eyes, right? And then that would also explain why Kazumi didn't, like, immediately jump onto the train with them and basically let us run off. Because she probably knew, like, okay, there's something more at play to the madness and the distrust going on here, right? Than we really are in any kind of situation to try and sit down and discuss. So, assuming that in that ending, Anna was the one who killed all of us, it's really not much of a stretch to say that maybe whoever is out there, or whatever entity is out there, drove her to insanity and drove her to a level of madness that resulted in her attacking all of us and killing us. Maybe. So that's just a little something thrown out there just to see how that kind of ends up playing out. Oh man, my arm hurts, dude. Ow. But yeah.
あのまま捕まっていたら私たち
Oh, they would have
殺され
killed
ていた
us.
かもしれ
Yeah.
ないわよ。
殺されてっておい仲間にかまさかそこまではしないだろう
A stern expression appeared on Anna's face when she heard his protests.
まだわからないの隊長さん。この最悪の状況下で本当に怖いのは火でも煙でも放射線でもない人間よ。追い詰められた人間のむき出しの悪意、それが一番怖いのよ。
Watase gasped. He thought that their only hope in this death-ridden facility had been the human will to survive. But now that things had gone to hell, it was likely the other way around. What happens when the human will to survive transcends human morals. Oh shit. Let's see. Does it become the will to survive, even at the cost of killing others? Or maybe it becomes the conviction that killing others is justifiable if it means protecting someone else. In any normal situation, Ukin and Jun probably would have never even dreamed about considering those things. But now that everyone's lives were at risk, their morals were most likely being shaven down to a layer of thin ice, possibly enough to justify murder in their minds. Damn it, how did things come to this? Why? I thought we were all on the same side here. The problem was whether the others felt the same way, and they probably didn't. Watase breathed a heavy sigh and turned to Anna.
なあ先生一つ聞いてもいいか
何？
どうして先生はさっき俺をかばったんだ俺の記憶がどうであれああいう映像記録が出てきてしまった以上怪しいのは間違いないだろう先生は俺に言ったよな全てを疑うべきってなのにどうして俺を
Faced with the others having seemingly gone mad, and beginning to doubt even his own memories, Watase wondered what Anna was truly after. Anna then spoke in a somewhat hesitant voice.
私もあなたの真意が知りたいからよ。ねえ隊長さん、あなたはユーリさんの遺体を見たと言ったわね。あのことについて自分ではどう思ってるの？
あれはおっさんの言う通り幻を見たんだと思う俺は記憶障害を起こしているそこに何度も汚染区域に入ったりして幻覚を見てもおかしくないさ
He was reminded of something Kazumi had said way back when. Radiation exposure causes severely negative effects on the human body. This includes skin inflammation, nausea, organ failure, brain cell damage, vision impairment, neurological orders, genetic disorders, and cancer. Vision impairment, neurological disorders, and brain cell damage. Any one of those could have caused Watase to hallucinate seeing a corpse.
それに実は目覚めてから時々幻聴も聞こえるんだ
幻聴？
ああ変に思われるのが嫌でずっと黙っていたが俺は最初先生の言っていた BC ってやつかと思ったんだだが幻聴はともかく人に幻覚を見せる BC なんて存在しないだろ
そうね
だから単に俺の頭が変になっているだけかもしれない
Oh shit, fuck. Keep clicking too fast. Feelings of abandonment seized Watase. But at that moment, Watase's head suddenly started hurting and his skin felt numb. It was just like the time he'd been in a contaminated zone. Watase checked his watch. It was past time for them to take AD.
まずい先生 AD を打つんだ
Watase and Anna frantically injected themselves with their last AD. Watase felt his headache settle down immediately as he did so. The Procon's reading was at 5,726 MSV.
いよいよ AD なしじゃ生きていけない環境になってきたな
In other words, Watase and the others only had an hour left to live.
だいたい考えてみりゃ数値が常に第一危険基準値を超えるようになってからAD でも被爆を防げるかどうかわからない線量の中に何時間もいるんだ
Watase shuddered, Anna then quietly spoke up.
確かに。でもね、隊長さん。
What is it, my goat?
私、少し気になっていることがあるの。あなたは記憶障害を起こした上に汚染区域に入ったから幻覚を見てもおかしくないと言ったわね。でも幻覚の原因が放射線じゃないとしたら。
何？
以前何かで読んだことがあるのよ。確かに放射線で視覚障害は起きるけど、それは視界混濁や視野狭窄であって、見えないものが見えるなんて話は聞いたことがないわ。
じゃあ俺の幻覚の原因は？
心当たりはない？
ない。
And his words only served to confuse what to say further.
だが脳細胞損傷や神経障害が起きているのかもしれん。脳や神経をやられたらそれはそれで幻覚を見ちまうんじゃないのか。
そうね。でももう一つ気になることがあるの。
Excuse me.
隊長さん、これ。
Anna took out her PDA. She then fiddled around with it, causing words to appear on the screen.
なんだこれ？
覚えてる？前に私一人で脳科学実験室を探ってて、浮田さんに怒られたことがあったでしょ。
ああ、確かそんなことが。
実はあの時、私いけないことをしていたの。脳科学実験室のパソコンから自分の PDA にデータをコピーしていたのよ。
何？なんでそんなことを？
あの時点で私はすでにこの事故が普通の事故じゃないと思っていたのよ。隔壁が9時間も開かないなんてどう考えてもおかしいじゃない。
確かに。
でもパソコンの中のデータは全て暗号化されていた。とりあえず自力で複合してみたんだけど、ほとんどのデータは壊れてしまったわ。
What is to remember that Anna had indeed been fiddling around with her PDA from time to time in the last few hours for some reason.
あれは地図を確認してたんじゃなくて複合作業をしていたのか。
ええ。それでいくつかギリギリ読めそうなデータを発見したの。
Anna then handed over her PDA to Watase. On screen was what appeared to be sentences from a report of sorts. Case and specifications alteration, blank blank, August blank blank blank, Kashiwagi. On blank 2021, subject Anna attempted to blank cape. As you already know, blank, at the same time blank this chance to reevaluate the danger of blank. This document talks about problems hinted at by this in blank. Blank leading blank the accident searcher proper took this chance. BC with blank communicator is ability to target their brains. Searcher dire contact subject N blah 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 0. Paradoxically, when blank just by at subject N to run. For alteration, GF2R gene, resistance X particle, no problem. Rather trying the aforementioned subject N WX per set blank A shows that blank just by blank the areas on all those subject as born in labo blank to let out. It is subject blank. Need to be very careful. There were several words that caught Watase's interest. Subject as born in labo. It is subject to be careful, but in spite of that.
全然わからん。なんだこれ。
そうね。ケース N の仕様変更倫理書のようだけど、この調子でろくに読めない文章が永遠と続くわ。他のデータも全部そう。なので手持ちのツールで何度も出てくる文字列を抜き出してみると、いくつか妙な単語が浮かび上がってきたの。本当に見てほしいのはこっちよ。ね、意味わかる？
Anna fiddled with her PDA again, this time bringing up a fully comprehensible list. Case N, 22 hits, Area N, 21 hits, Meltdown, 20 hits, Subject, Test Subject, 19 hits, NBC, 15 hits, WX Particle, 13 hits, Particle Amplifier, 9 hits, Subject N, 8 hits, Brain Dysfunction, Gene Malfunction, Area 0, WX Particle Proliferation, Subject Y, Subject Y2, Gene Abnormality, Subject A. Watase felt chills run down his spine with each phrase he saw. I don't get it. There were multiple unknown phrases in that mix, yet he felt a strange yet severe sense of discomfort. But it was soon cast aside for another emotion.
被験体 N？ IGF-2R 遺伝子。
His heart shook down from those phrases. He could feel a pitch-black emotion, a mix of fear, anger, and hatred, welling up from the bottom of his heart like a geyser. The killer wasn't Anna. It was Yuri.
隊長さん、何か見覚えが？
They did seem familiar to him, but a second later, a violent headache tore through him. It was as if his brain was refusing to let him remember. He still tried to search through his brain in spite of the pain, but no relevant memories would come to him.
いや、覚えがない。
そう。
Anna let out a truly disappointed sigh.
先生は何か心当たりがあるか？
私もないわ。ただ、
See, because she knows
なんだか気
something
にな
more.
って。
Like, there's a reason that she's sided with us, despite all the suspicious evidence against us. And then there's a reason that she showed us this. Like, oh yeah, I just happen to have all this strings of data and stuff. Does it make any sense to you? And it's like, oh, well, do you have any ideas? Oh, no, just bugged me.
脳機能障害という単語があったから、あなたの記憶障害や幻覚に関係しているのかとちょっと思ったんだけど。
I still do think she knows more than she's letting on.
何も思い出せない。やっぱり幻覚も幻聴も俺の脳に異常が出ているせいだと思う。記憶喪失も。
It did seem like the cause of Wadisei's frequent headaches and memory problems really did lie in his brain.
だとしたら、俺自身気づいていないが、AD を盗んだのかもしれない。自分一人だけ生き残ればいいという考えが自分の中にないとは言い切れない。
Wadisei suddenly began to get scared. Very scared. Oh shit. Perhaps there was a wicked side to him that he was not aware of, one that was deciding all his actions on its own and driving everyone to their deaths. That thought was much more frightening than the prospect of his own death. But Anna spoke to Wadisei with a kind voice when she saw him trembling.
しっかりして、隊長さん。あなたはそんな人じゃないわ。
My goat. My fucking goat.
あなたは確かに疑わしいわ。監視カメラの一件にしても、記憶喪失の件にしてもね。でも私はね、それを差し引いても、あなたを信用したいと思ってる。
なぜだ？
だって、あなたがみんなを助けるため、必死に頑張ってくれたことは、間違いない真実だもの。面識もない私の生徒のために、汚染区域にまで入ってくれたことも。記憶喪失だろうと、幻覚を見ようと、そんなの、些細なことじゃない？あなたが今のあなたでいる限り、隊長さんでいる限り、私は、あなたの味方よ。
Oh my god. Anna! I love you. Anna gazed straight at Wadisei. Wadisei couldn't bear to look her in the eye. He hung his head and answered.
ありがとう、先生。
There was someone out there who would say they were on his side when even he didn't trust himself. Wadisei was grateful for that more than anything else at the moment.
だが、どうする？森部も浮田のおっさんも俺を心底疑っているぞ。
そうね。だから、私があの二人を説得してくる
Oh
わ。
god, please, let's not do that. Let's not do that.
まさか一人で行くつもりか？
当たり前でしょ？あなたが一緒に来たりしたら、話がややこしくなるだけだわ。
See, this is where we all of a sudden, like, we let her go on her own, and then they fucking brutally maul her to death. And then now we're stuck here being like, oh yeah, you know, we had this really nice connective moment where it's like, oh yeah, when nobody else would believe in me, she did. And then she dies immediately afterward.
それはそうかもしれないが。
すぐに戻ってくるから。ここで待ってて。
Oh god, this is gonna end so fucking badly. I just know it. I mean, hey, if it doesn't, yippee! But this is, there are so many red flags being thrown up right now. No sooner had Anna said that than did Wadisei feel the anxiety in his heart rapidly spread.
いや、待て先生、それは危険だ。
え？
あいつらは銃の一件で先生に対してもかなり疑心を抱いてる。
Yes.
今出て行ったら何されるかわからないぞ。
でもだったらどうすればいいのよ。
Listen, we ride solo for a while, dig a little bit deeper in this. I mean, we have the time to do so. Well, we have an hour to do so. We, chill. I think we honestly leave this in the hands of Kazumi. I think Kazumi isn't fully convinced that we are as bad as Ukita and Jun are convinced that we are. So I think if we kind of let them calm down and just let Kazumi talk some sense
こん
into
な状
them,
況じゃ AD も
I
要
think
救
that's
助者
probably
も
for the best.
脱出口も捜索できないでしょ。私がみんなを説得しなきゃどうにもならないじゃない。
The situation did indeed look hopeless. Even if they could persuade Jun and Ukita, that wouldn't change the fact that they didn't have enough AD. Everyone would be exposed to radiation in just another hour. They'd be struggling as hard as they could for the last 5 hours, but in the end, now that I think about it, we haven't solved any of our problems. They hadn't found the survivors, to say the least, of Yuri. Someone with a gun could be hiding down here with them. His once trusted allies now saw him as their enemy.
だが説得ができなくてもみんなが生き延びられる方法があればいい。
そりゃそうよ。でもそんなのあると思う
There's a will, there's a way, Anna. He didn't. All normal methods were impossible. If there had been a way, then they would have done it ages ago. But what if I've been thinking about this the wrong way the whole time? Is there a method that we haven't thought of yet? If it means running into danger we've avoided up until now, or putting my own life on the line, if I'm prepared for that, then what's the first method I can do? Words that he heard a while back replayed themselves in Watase's mind.
どうやら原子炉のある N エリアで今も大規模な火災が続いているらしく、そのためにセキュリティシステムが暴走し外部からアクセスできなくなっているそうなんだ。
A light bulb went off in his head. A wide smile then spontaneously adorned his cheeks.
どうしたの？
Anna, let's cook. Wadase answered Anna's puzzled question with subdued voice.
先生、思いついたよ。すべてを解決する方法を。
え？
答えは一番最初に出ていたんだ。全員助ける方法を俺はとっくに知っていたんだよ。
どういうこと？
Okay, calm down, Brad.
だったらなんでそれを隠していたのよ。
Wadase put his index finger to his lips. Anna went quiet with a start.
あまり大声を上げちゃダメだ。森部たちに知られたら終わりだ。
本当にそんな方法があるのね。
ああ、先生だけには教えてやる。ちょっと耳を貸してくれ。
Anna walked up to Wadase in surprise. He then brought his mouth to her ear.
いいか先生、その方法ってのは俺が命を捨てるってことだ。
And whispered those decisive words. Anna's eyes widened. Wadase then slipped behind her and got her in a chokehold. What the fuck? What? Wadase paid no attention to Anna's pained grunts and kept squeezing her neck.
どうして？
What the fuck?
ごめんな。教えたら先生、俺を止めるだろう。
Okay, it's one of these things.
だから悪いけど、ここで少し眠っていてくれ。
Before long, strength left Anna's body. There were a lot of ways to overpower a fucking school teacher. Listen, I'm not sure about, the canon heights of this, but considering Wadase is like basically a firefighter and he's presumably pretty fucking jacked, I think it was a little excessive to choke out a presumably small Japanese female, school teacher. We could have just like locked her in the room or like, I don't know, ran away or something, like tied her up. I don't know, something.
何をしてるんだ?
He heard the auditory hallucination echo through his head again. It no longer even surprised him, so he paid no heed to it and left the room. Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty much confirmed at this point that the voice in our head is the student that we're gonna be playing as in the other route. I mean, I think it's pretty apparent. Okay, so he destroys the key card. This way, Morty and the old man can't get into the room, so she'll be safe. The auditory hallucination then return with a vengeance.
おい答えろ。なぜ先生を気絶させた。お前何をしようとしてるんだ。
I really must be a lunatic if I'm gonna actually answer an auditory hallucination. Wadase laughed bitterly, then answered the hallucination.
森部たちを説得するなんて意味がない。何しろもうあと1時間しかないんだ。だがそれでも皆を助ける方法が一つだけある。
何。
Wadase took a security card out of his pocket. It was the level N card that the dead girl had had on her, the only key that would open the door to Area N.
司令長が言っていた。N エリアで火災が続いていて、それでセキュリティシステムが暴走していると。だったら N エリアの火災を消しさえすればセキュリティシステムの暴走は止まり、隔壁も開けられるはず。
まさかお前一人で N エリアに行くつもりか。
I see.
そのまさかさ。
The melted nuclear reactor was in Area N. The radiation filling that area was no doubt off the charts compared to what they were faced with out here. But in spite of that, Wadase still managed to force a smile. So what? What he truly feared wasn't death. It was powerlessness, to watch everything come to an end, helpless to stop it. With that thought in mind and his destination set, Wadase started walking off. The auditory hallucination then began to shout desperately at him.
やめろバカ、死ぬぞ。燃える原子炉の火をたった一人で消せるわけがないだろう。仮に消火できたとしても被爆は免れないんだぞ。
That voice had guided Wadase many a time up until now, even though he didn't know if it was his ally or his enemy. So when Wadase once again heard that voice no one else knew of, he defied it.
すまん。今回ばかりはお前の言うことは聞けない。誰かがやらなきゃダメなんだよ。みんなで5時間以上頑張って今こんなざまなんだから。
そんなに死にたいのか。みんなを助けるためなら
Yeah.
死んじまってもいいってのか。
Bad to the bone. The voice was growing louder and angrier. Wadase answered it with a wry
お
smile.
前にはわかんないかな。別に俺は死にたいわけじゃない。ただ皆を助けたいだけなんだよ。
どうしてそうまでして。
This was the second time he'd been asked that today.
どうしてそうまでして私を救おうとしたりするんですか。
Wadase fondly remembered that question. It was from a time when the group had worked together to find a way to survive, a time before they were overtaken by discord. Wadase quietly muttered the answer he hadn't given back then.
俺は人を助けることだけをずっと考えてきたんだ。お前に有利を助けろって言われたあの時からな。
Without any memories of the past, these few hours he'd spent here in Labo were Wadase's entire life, and the few memories he had recovered had been of Labo too. This dark underground facility was the only world he knew. Maybe he could have made a different choice if he were living peacefully. But Wadase had awoken in this facility consumed by radiation, all while bearing the burden of his role as a rescue squad captain.
だから俺はその役目を全うしたいだけなんだよ。火や爆風や煙に覆われて無力な自分に腹を立てながらよ。AD が足りなくなりゃガスの中にも汚染区域にも飛び込んで、誰かが穴に落っこちたら手掴んで引っ張り上げて、有利が瓦礫に潰されそうになれば身を挺してかばって、そうして皆を助けることだけをずっと考えてきたんだよ。
The voice went quiet. It wasn't surprising. There's no one out there who could understand Wadase's feelings. He was an entity who'd suddenly been born into this hellish environment without any memories. He didn't know who he was, only that he was a spirit bestowed with the sole duty of saving lives. That was him. That was Wadase Kastasagi. The wounds he'd gained in the process of fulfilling that duty suddenly began hurting. His burnt left hand. His cracked ribs. The cut on the back of his head. His throat felt like it was on fire from thirst and all the vomiting he'd done, and his body was as heavy as lead from the exhaustion he'd built up. And yet he did not stop. For his will was the only thing he could rely on now that he didn't even trust himself.
俺は俺のせいで誰かが死ぬのは嫌なんだ。 俺が行動しなかったせいで全員が命を落とすのも同じことだ。原子炉の火を消すことで皆が救われるならそうしよう。その結果
Even if I lose my life as a result. Perhaps the auditory hallucination had figured out what he was thinking, as it spoke up in a faint voice.
渡瀬、お
分かったろ。分かったらもう黙っていてくれ。これ以上話すと決心が鈍りそうだ。
Wadase muttered that and broke off into a run. He headed for Area N, home of the burning reactor. Wadase's Procyon started beeping louder than he'd ever heard it before when he opened the connecting passageway gate to Area N. The Procon's display was giving off a reading far greater than he'd ever seen before.
12010ミリシーベルト。
Jesus Christ. He was then assaulted by an intense headache and severe nausea. His skin was numb and his vision grew blurry. Come on, buddy. Wadase turned his Procyon off, then kept walking. The nuclear reactor's right behind this gate. A melted down reactor, raging hellfire, and extremely lethal doses of radiation. Wadase shuddered as he imagined that hell on Earth waiting for him right up ahead. But
覚悟の上だ。
Wadase kept himself from shaking, then pulled a hose out from a nearby fire hydrant. He held it with his left hand, with the security card in the right. The extinguishing preparations all set. Let's roll. Though genuine danger lay just up ahead, Wadase did not falter. Endless courage was coursing through him. He suddenly broke out into a smile. Looks like I finally became a true rescue worker. He then took the card in his hand. Yare, yare. And opened the gate. Here we go. At that moment, he felt as if he had stepped into a raging storm. An invisible force broke over his body with earth-shattering power. Yet Wadase stood his ground and opened his eyes. Then he saw what lay on the other side of the gate. Wadase gasped in the face of that sight. Standing on the other side of the door was a gigantic hall filled with a faint sound of running machinery.
なんだここは。
There was supposed to be a melted down nuclear reactor there. There were supposed to be fires causing the security system to go haywire there. Yet all he saw was a cold, empty room.
どういうことなんだ。炎上する原子炉ってのはどこに。
Wadase threw the hose aside and looked around. A transparent cylinder stood in the center of Area N, surrounded by 6 towering spire-like installations. Those installations all connected to each other near the ceiling, forming a hexagram.
これは。この機械は。
Wadase staggered over to that device. Now that he thought about it, he didn't really know what a nuclear reactor looked like, but he had a feeling that what he was looking at was no nuclear reactor.
ちょっと待て。そういえば、さっき先生が見せてくれた文書には。
Wadase strained his brain to remember the words he'd seen earlier. Let's see. The words in that search list were Case N, Meltdown, Brain Dysfunction, Subject N, WX Particle, Particle Amplifier, WX Particle Spread.
おかしい。
He then finally realized what had been the source of that uncomfortable feeling he'd gotten back then. Though Case N and Meltdown had shown up on that list, terms that should have been there weren't. There'd been not a single sign of the terms nuclear reactor, radiation, radioactive material, or radiation exposure. Instead, there were mysterious terms like WX particle and particle amplifier. It was clearly strange. Wadase couldn't explain it. However, he felt the answer lied in this room.
火災が起きてないってだけじゃない。もしかしてここには。
Could it be that these are creating the radiation and then amplifying it?
原子炉自体存在しないんじゃないのか。
Wadase's shout was full of astonishment.
どういうことだ。俺たちは騙されていたのか。誰に。何の目的で。
His confusion begot more questions. He felt like he'd heard the same words being screamed at some point in the past. Did the commander lie to us? Why would he ever do that? No. The ones I should be down are the staff of Labo. So does that include old man Ukita too? From what Wadase had seen from everyone how everyone had acted, It seemed the entire city believed that Labo housed a nuclear reactor. But then why did the people running Labo lie about that? What meaning was there in putting such an elaborate ruse to fool the townspeople? Wadase's head hurt again when he thought about that. It felt far worse than any of his other headaches. All his wounds and skin also began to hurt at the same time. To make matters worse, his body started shaking for no apparent reason. Wait, are these convulsions? He frantically looked around, hoping to find an exit, but instead he spotted a strange object. Something was lying on the ground further ahead. He staggered on over to pick it up. It was a security card that had been split into two. The name on the card was Miyoko Tenkawa. Its security level was a level M. Just then, an unpleasant stench suddenly took hold of Wadase's nose. It was a familiar stench, albeit 100 times worse than any past experience he had with it. The stench of blood. A bad feeling rose in Wadase's heart as he took a look behind the device. Oh shit. A boy garbed in a school uniform was lying there. His body was collapsed in a pool of spreading blood. Isn't that Natsuhiko Tenkawa? His name and face matched up perfectly with Wadase's memory of him. But Natsuhiko didn't respond to his calls. Wadase took off his gloves and pressed his index finger against Natsuhiko's carotid artery. He couldn't feel a pulse, and Natsuhiko's body was cold. Wadase frantically laid Natsuhiko flat on the floor and began CPR. Just do it like Tachibana and Moribe did. 15 compressions, 2 rescue breaths. No reaction. God damn it, god damn it! Wadase desperately continued to perform CPR while fighting off his headache and convulsions. 15 compressions, 2 rescue breaths. 15 compressions, 2 rescue breaths. 15 compressions, 2 rescue breaths. Please, don't die! Soon enough, Wadase felt a faint pulse. Wadase pressed his hand against Natsuhiko's mouth and felt the boy's breath, but that didn't change the fact that he had nigh-fatal wounds. It had been a miracle if he survived after losing that much blood. But why is he bleeding so bad to begin with? Wadase looked over Natsuhiko's body to find there were several small holes and wounds here and there behind his uniform. The sight of them was no longer shocking to Wadase after having seen so many before. Just then, he noticed something lying next to Natsuhiko. He felt the object's heavy weight pass through his arms when he picked it up. It was different from the one Anna had, but it was undoubtedly a pistol. Wadase groaned in shock, but at that moment... a mysterious fear flared up in him. The monster looked at him and laughed. At that moment, just as an indescribable fear sent shivers down his spine, he was assaulted by an intense pain akin to his brain being crushed. The man screamed, faced with an agony unlike anything he'd felt before. His well-toned body proved helpless in the face of that power. You damn monster! In spite of that, he struggled against it, attempting to complete his mission. Nevertheless, his will broke as the overwhelming pain surged through his head once more. He staggered backwards, clutching his head. The monster's face warped sinisterly, its gaze piercing right through him. Oh, I never noticed it. We have the gun. He then fled without looking back. If he'd stood his ground, he'd been killed, annihilated. And so he held his throbbing head as he ran for his life. I have to get away, as far as possible. He had to retreat to a place where the monster's power couldn't reach him, but it was all for naught. Everything in front of him flashed as he felt an agony like that of his head exploding. It was a memory he had no recollection of. It seemed like it was a memory of just before Wadase had lost his memories, and the thing that scared Wadase so much back then was this boy right in front of him? No way, there's no way that's true. Wadase shook his head to dismiss that delusion. Anyway, I've got to get him to a safe space. Wadase put the pistol in his breast pocket, then lifted Natsuhiko's body up into his arms. But just then... Watase felt a presence behind him. He turned around and saw it. Someone with a tiny frame was charging straight at him. In their hand was an axe. Just as Watase realized that. Oh shit, so she was the one who attacked us, not Anna or Yuri. The figure swung the axe down towards the crown of his head. Watase strafed to the side to dodge the sudden swing. He desperately put distance between them and his attacker that confirmed their identity. Standing there was none other than... It was Salyu, the girl who had run away from him twice now. A light as cold as ice shimmered in the depths of her eyes. Gripped in her hand was a burnt axe. It was the one that had been clutched in the hands of his deceased co-worker, Hiyama. But they left it behind in Area 4. So why did Salyu have it? Salyu ignored Watase's question and charged straight at him again. She was aiming for Watase's neck. He barely leaned back in time, leaving the axe to slice only through air. The weight of the weapon was throwing her around and causing her to sway forward heavily. Now! He immediately grabbed for Salyu, but she swung her leg up a second earlier. She made use of her centrifugal force to launch a swift kick, connecting solidly with his temple. Watase's brain rattled and his vision grew dark. Despite that, he still managed to quickly thrust Salyu away. He then jumped back and put some distance between them again. He was greeted with the cold look on Salyu's face when his sight came back. What's she doing? She attacked without the slightest hesitation, using battle techniques that didn't befit a girl of her size and age. Worse, Watase's headaches and convulsions were only getting stronger. It was likely he'd die for real if he fought in this condition. Watase hesitated for a moment, wondering if she should take out the pistol in his breast pocket. No, what am I thinking? I can't hurt someone else to protect myself. Just as he thought that, he noticed that Salyu's body was faintly trembling. She was convulsing the same way Watase had been for a while now.
Oi, 君もまさかこの頭痛を感じてるのか? だったらさっさとここから逃げろ。自分の身を危険にさらしてまで俺と戦って何になる?
Salyu suddenly stopped in what appeared to be surprise.
またそのセリフ。
また?
あなたは前回も私に同じことを言った。
なんだと?
Watase's body froze with surprising confusion. When was this last time? When did this girl and I... That moment of confusion left Watase wide open. Salyu charged at him yet again. Shit! I can't hold out next time. I'll be done for. When Watase thought that, his body moved on his own. Watase then lowered his body as if he was putting himself into a crouch start for a 100-meter dash. He filled his legs with strength, then released it all at once and sprung at Salyu. Her face was filled with shock. Watase tackled her with the force of a bullet a second later, hitting her right in the waist. Hey, bro's a fucking linebacker. The axe slipped out of Salyu's hand as she fell on her back. Watase used his remaining momentum to straddle her. Watase came to his senses, only to realize he was pinning Salyu down. What? The actions he'd taken just now had clearly been etched into him instinctively through training, but they were obviously not skills needed to save lives. Where did I ever pick up a skill like that? Salyu glared up at him, her eyes seething like cold blue flames. Watase shook off the chills running down his spine and tried to reason with her.
どうして襲いかかってきたりしたんだ? 頼む、教えてくれ。俺には訳がわからないんだ。
Salyu's eyes moved just then. Her gaze was now focused on Natsuhiko.
もしかして俺が夏彦を襲ったと思ったのか? だとしたらそれは誤解だ。俺はさっき彼を医務室へ連れて行こうとしていたんだ。彼に危害を加えるつもりなんて俺にはないんだよ。
Salyu then spoke in a near inaudible voice.
待て。
Watase brought his face closer to hers to hear better.
私でも見抜けるような見えすいた嘘はやめて。
それはどういう?
But Salyu moved her right hand as fast as lightning before Watase could finish. She poked him in the eyes, temporarily blinding him. Wednesday felt Sayu slipping her body out from under him at the same time. Crap, I've got to put some distance between us. Wednesday had no way of dodging any axe swings at this time. Shit. Wednesday blindly stretched out his hands in front of the darkness. His left hand suddenly came into contact with something. It was the sensation of cloth, a sleeve. Wednesday grabbed onto it and focused solely on pulling it towards him. Sayu's gasp echoed through the darkness. Wednesday kept clutching onto her with his left hand while his right hand remained free. I have to defeat her right here and now. Wednesday's body, spurred on by his ever-growing fear, filled with fierce strength. He reluctantly clenched his hand into a fist so he could knock her unconscious when...
やめろ！彼女を傷つけるな！
The auditory hallucination showed up again. Wednesday came back to his senses and opened his raised fist. Then he slipped behind Sayu and locked her into a chokehold. Sayu struggled. Wednesday's vision hadn't returned yet. Sorry about this. Wednesday mentally apologized to Sayu as he applied pressure to her thin neck, all while being careful not to squeeze too hard. Jesus Christ. Alright, that's two people down. That's two people we done knocked out. All the strength in her body soon faded away. Wednesday let out a great big sigh once he confirmed this, then loosened his grip. His sight soon came back. He could see Sayu was passing out cold in his grip. That was too close. She really did want to kill me. But anyway, what can I do for her now? His head and skin still hurt like hell. His convulsions also hadn't let up. He didn't know why, but his instincts were screaming that it was too dangerous for him to stay here too long.
二人をここから出してやらなければ。
Wadase carried Natsuhiko and Sayu. They were heavy. Wadase's body truly was in poor shape if they felt that way to him. He staggered out of Area N along with Natsuhiko and Sayu. He left through the same door he'd come through, and when he made his way out to the connecting passageway,
隊長
he found Kazumi standing there.
よかった。ご無事だったんですね。
立花、お前どうしてここに？
Wadase was cautious of Kazumi after what had transpired back in the surveillance room.
それは隊長のことが心配で、それで監視カメラを見ていたら隊長が N エリアに入っていくのが見えて、でもこれどういうことなんですか？
Kazumi was looking at Natsuhiko and Sayu with shock.
あ、夏彦とサリュだ。今は気を失っている。
この子たちに何？
夏彦は N エリアに倒れていたんだ。サリュはおそらく N エリアに後から入ってきたんだと思う。
N エリアに倒れていたって、 N エリアには炎上する原子炉があるんじゃ。
いや、俺にも訳がわからないんだが N エリアにはそんなものはなかったんだ。
That revelation left Kazumi speechless, but Wadase had figured she'd have a hard time believing that, so he handed her his level N card.
立花、聞くより見るのが早い。その目で確認してきてくれ。
Kazumi nodded dubiously, then took the card and ran towards Area N. About 30 seconds later, Kazumi came back quickly and immediately started talking.
信じられません。まさかこんなことが。
Wadase nodded as he took the level N card back from her.
ああ、俺たちはどうも根本的なところで誰かに騙されていたようだ。
しかもあの機械、おそらく原子炉とは別の何かだと。
It appeared Kazumi also believed that the giant machine in Area N was no reactor. However,
立花、説明や議論は後だ。早いとこ夏彦を手当てしないとまずい。
まずい。Kazumi looked at Natsuhiko and nodded.
出血がひどいようですね。輸血が必要かと思われます。
Excuse me.
じゃあ医務室に行こう。あそこには血液パックも輸血キット。
了解しました。一人は私が運びます。
Oh shit. What the fuck? So I'm checking something. Checking something. Go.
できるか。足の傷が。
だいぶ回復しました。なんとかなります。
Kazumi pressed against the wound in her leg and carried Salyu.
しかし隊長、原子炉がないということは、この施設は一体。
わからん。俺にはもう何もわからん。
Those words came straight from the bottom of Watase's heart. Watase and Kazumi carried Natsuhiko and Salyu, respectively, towards Area 4. All the emergency staircases in Area 5 were out of commission, so they decided to get to the infirmary through Area 4.
隊長、道中は気をつけていきましょう。
何かあったのか？
実は N エリアに来る前、森部と浮田さんが監視ルームを飛び出していったのですが、あの二人かなりおかしくなっているようなんです。
おかしくなってるって？
どう説明すればいいのかわかりませんが、とにかく今隊長が彼らと会うのは危険です。
Amplifier. I mean, that surely has something to do with like, huh? Well, we'll go through all that at the end of the episode. He didn't know the details, but the tone in Kazumi's voice and the look on her face were enough to convince Watase.
わかった。ここからは慎重に行こう。
Watase and Kazumi carefully made their way down the connecting passageway. Fortunately, they made it to the infirmary without encountering anyone else. They then laid the children down on the beds and began treating Natsuhiko immediately. Kazumi used a scanner there to check Natsuhiko's blood type.
出ました。RH プラス O 型です。急性反応もなし。
She then took the Type O blood pack out of the refrigerator and quickly set it into the transfusion kit. Finally, she pricked Natsuhiko with a needle, starting the transfusion. While all that was going on, Watase used all the Chiron he had on hand to seal up Natsuhiko's wounds as much as possible.
夏彦の容体はどうなんだ？助かりそうか？
呼吸、脈拍ともに極めて微弱。しかし、バイタルサインはかろうじて安定。予断を許さない状況ではありますが、このまま輸血を続ければなんとかなりそうです。
Immense relief washed over Watase.
よかった。
しかし、あくまで応急処置です。一刻も早く。
Oops.
ですが、その前に教えてください。監視ルームを出た後、一体何があったのですか？
実は。
Kazumi stared at Watase with a stern look on her face as the latter recounted the series of events that had led him to this point. He started by telling her how he'd gone to Area N all by himself to try and put out the fires in order to end the lockdown. He then talked about how there had been no fires there, to say the least, of a melted down nuclear reactor. Finally, he mentioned how he found Natsuhiko, was attacked by Salyu right afterwards, and then reluctantly knocked her unconscious.
そうだったのですか。
Kazumi lowered her eyes at the floor as she pondered what Watase had told her.
おかしなことが多すぎて、
Are we forgetting about Enna?
何から
We just
質問
left
す
her
れば
there?
いいのか測りかねますが、まず隊長はこのラボについてどう思われますか？
Labo is obviously super fucking suspicious.
どう思うとは？
N エリアには原子炉も火災もありませんでした。
Well, I mean, I think at this point,
なのに
it's gotta be a
核
case
壁は
of
閉ざされたまま。
like this has to be all purposeful, right? Like this surely was planned. I mean, there was no nuclear reactor to melt down in the first place. So it makes sense to me that it's like, yeah, we just, oh yeah, convene 8-hour lockdown, at which point the particle amplifier can spread fast enough so that when the lockdown ends, all of a sudden now there is, you know, and that's the thing, we don't even know if this is actually radiation. Like, if this is radiation, well then it seems like this is just a big scheme to have everything, to like expose this whole town to radiation or something. Or maybe it's like some kind of mass human experiment that's going on where they're trying to make everybody go insane and start killing each other. I don't know. But yeah, these people are obviously up to no good, man. I mean, yeah, a fucking, basically, not necessarily top secret, but well, actually, no, yeah, a top secret, laboratory research facility under the guise of a nuclear reactor. Like, come on. That is so suspicious.
何か理由があるとは思いませんか？
確かにな。理由となると俺にも見当もつかないが、ただ 原子炉がなかったということは、ここはそもそも原子力研究所じゃないのかもしれない。
私もそう思います。しかしそうなると放射線もないということになりますが、私が AD の投与をしなかった時は肌のしびれや頭痛などの症状
And
が
yeah,
出
that's
ま
not,
した。
like we've had multiple deaths. Like we've had deaths now where that pretty much confirm like there is something that is at the very least producing effects similar to radiation, right? So it's like we know that, you know, in that other death we got just at like the beginning of this episode, you know, we were in the room and we were vomiting. We had extreme nausea, an extreme headache. So it produces the exact same effects.
ああ、俺も汚染区域に入ると頭痛や気絶、果ては吐血までいろんな症状が出た。だったらやっぱりここには何かヤバいものが蔓延してるんだよ。
But then again, like I'm saying, maybe this is just a thing where there's something that they're fucking around with some kind of particles or something that cause us to have these side effects, and then these particle amplifiers are then obviously making it more severe at that source, and then it's spreading. So it's not radiation, but it has something to do with it that's causing it to have the same exact like impact. But then also in theory, you could still survive perfectly fine without AD. It's just gonna fucking suck.
では N エリアにあったあの機械は原子炉じゃなくて一体何なんでしょう。
Just as Kazumi said that, a fragmented memory flashed through Watase's brain.
そういえば、なんかあの機械どこかで見た気が。
何ですって？記憶を失う前ですか？
違う、もっと最近のつい数時間ほど前の話だ。あれは確か。
But before Watase could remember... Uh-oh. The door to the infirmary suddenly opened. Watase and Kazumi turned around in shock to find Ukita standing there.
おやおや、これは隊長さんに
Oh,
副
fuck.
隊長さん。
Sorry, Ukita, I gotta slime your ass out, bruh.
物音がするから来てみれば、君らは何をやっているのかね。
What? Ukita's eyes were glazed over with instability. His gaze locked onto the two survivors resting in their respective beds.
夏彦君、それに三宮君も。ずいぶんひどい怪我じゃないか。一体なぜ、そして今までどこに。
Watase carefully chose his words as he answered.
実は火災を消火しようと N エリアに入って、そこで彼らを保護したんだ。
N エリアの消火だと。なるほど。それで全て理解できたよ。君がやはり裏切り者だったということをね。
おっさん。
He didn't understand why Ukita was angry, but Ukita ignored the bewilderment on Watase's face and continued talking in a subdued voice.
隊長さん、僕はこれでも君を信頼していたんだ。君は正義の人だと本当にそう思っていたんだよ。だからこそ彼女らを救うため、僕も僕なりに命を懸けた。許せん。
Ukita grunted and reached into his breast pocket. He then pulled out a pistol. It was the same pistol that Anna had given him, the one whose bullets and magazines had been removed and given to Jun and Anna for safekeeping, leaving Ukita with the gun itself. It should have been unloaded.
おっさん、はったりのつもりか。その銃は弾倉も入ってないハリボテだろ。
はったり？君は知らな
I
かったよ
did want
ね。
Anna to have the gun. I did want Anna to have the gun because she obviously knew how to use it.
弾倉がなくても弾丸さえあれば銃を撃つことはできるのだよ。
弾丸ってそんなもんどこに？
さてね。
Ukita's attitude made it clear that he apparently wasn't bluffing.
脆弱な正義と笑うがいいさ。だがこれが僕の選択だ。君を殺してこの状況が終わるならそうしよう。一生に一度くらいは罪に手を染めてでも。
Ukita's words made no sense. His face was clearly brimming with insanity.
浮田さん。
待ておっさん、そいつを撃つ前に聞いてくれ。あんたは知らされてなかったのかもしれないが、N エリアに原子炉は存在しなかったんだ。だから 俺たちが放射線を恐れる必要なんて初めからなかったんだよ。
If it was Ukida's fear of radiation that had caused him to fall so far off the beaten track, then hearing that would likely bring him back to his senses. However,
君はこの後に及んでそんなたわごとを。
he's gone, bro. Slam him out.
信じろ、本当なんだ。
まあどちらでもいいさ。どうせ君の任務はここで終わりだ。死ねえ裏切り者。
Ukida pulled the trigger. Watase froze in terror. But right then,
隊長危ない。
Ukida's bullet bore a hole into the wall behind Watase.
おっさん。
Watase pulled his pistol out as Kazumi grappled with Ukida.
な
Ukida frantically turned around when he caught sight of the gun pointed straight at him. Watase had a chance to shoot him in the back right there, but he couldn't pull the trigger. He didn't even know if there were any bullets left in that pistol. Ukida ran out of the door and out of sight. The only trace of him was his shouts coming from the hallway.
とうとう本性を現したな隊長さん。だが僕は必ず君を裁いてやる。そのことを忘れるな。
The sound of Ukida's footsteps disappearing in the direction of Area 4.
くそ、おっさんのやつどうしちまったんだ。
There was something suspicious about Watase, no question about it, but Ukida was taking things way too far. Then he suddenly realized that Kazumi was staring at the gun in his hands.
隊長その拳銃は。
ああ、そういえばさっき話してなかったな。これは N エリアで拾ったものだ。夏彦のそばに落ちていたんだ。
そうだったんですか。
It seemed she was scared of the pistol. Watase quickly put it back into his breast pocket and changed the subject.
とにかくすぐにこの場所から移動しよう。おっさんに知られてしまった以上、いつまでもここに留まっているのは危険だからな。
Natsuhiko's transfusion was still in progress, and Salyu hadn't shown any signs of regaining consciousness. Their lives would be in danger if another fight broke out in the infirmary.
それに先生も危ない。
椿山さんですか。そういえば
We just forgot to
彼
mention
女は
that,
ど
I
こに。
guess.
第2エリアの小部屋に置いてきた。おっさんはあの様子じゃ先生も襲いかねない。
わかりました。では天川くんの輸血を続けたまま椿山さんと合流しましょう。
Kazumi attached the blood pack and transfusion kit to Natsuhiko's body. Watase then carried him, while Kazumi did the same for Salyu as they all left the room. But by the time Watase and Kazumi arrived to return to the office in Area 2, the door had been totally destroyed.
なんだこりゃ。
There was now a giant hole in the door, one big enough for a human to fit through. Now the destruction of the door opening mechanism meant nothing at all.
先生。
Watase and Kazumi frantically climbed through the hole. But there was no one there. Perhaps Anna had regained consciousness and escaped on her own. Watase was glad that she was apparently okay, but
誰がこんなことを。どうやってこの扉を破壊した。
嫌な予感がします。逃げましょう隊長。どこか安全なところまで。
ああ。
Watase and Kazumi ran out of the room without a moment's delay. They then neared the connecting passageway to Area 1 when a strange noise coming from up ahead stopped them in their tracks.
何の音だ。
Watase held his breath and peeked into the passageway from a nearby corner. Moribe? Jun was about 10 meters away wielding the engine cutter. She muttered something as blood poured from her head.
一体どこに。そうだ。やっぱりそうなんだよ。だったら。
Jesus. So now we have something. Well, so I can only assume that again there's something that's causing them to be driven mad. I think this is past the point of just like insanity for the situation's sake. And I think Salyu came under that same kind of force as well.
そうなきゃみんなを守れない。私があいつを殺さなきゃ。辛くても頑張らなきゃ。
Jun talked to thin air as if she were chanting a curse. Watase trembled with fear when he heard her. And I, that son of a bitch? Maybe they doubted me. So those doubts just keep on escalating. It was strange no matter how he thought about it, but with Ukida's attempt on his life still fresh in his mind, that was the only possibility he could come up with. Wadase turned around and whispered into Kazumi's ear.
まずい森部のやつエンジンカッターを持ち出してやがる。
仕方ありません。ここは一旦引きましょう。
いいのか、森部はお前の妹分なのに。
ああなってしまってはおそらく私にも説得は無理でしょうから。
Wadase nodded. He couldn't deny the truth in Kazumi's pained statement. But as they tried to walk away, Wadase's boots clacked noisily against the floor. The sound of the engine cutter's motor rapidly grew closer.
いけません。
逃げるぞ立花。
Jesus Christ. Wadase and Kazumi desperately broke out into a run through the passageway. They looked around for a place to hide without stopping. They fled into the Area 3 connecting passageway and closed the gate behind Kazumi, before Kazumi chose to speak up in a frightened voice.
隊長、どこに逃げればいいのでしょう。
森部がエンジンカッターを持ち出した以上、どこかの部屋に立てこもっても無意味だ。ドアを破られちまう。
しかし、どこか安全なところに逃げ込まなければ。
ああ、夏彦たちを背負ったまま逃げてちゃ、いずれ奴らに見つかっちまう。
Wadase checked his watch. It read 2:51 p.m. There were just 15 minutes left until the AD wore off. There was no doubt that everyone underground would be severely injured once that time came. A heavy silence hung in the air. Kazumi soon shouted it with a sad voice.
どうしてこんなことに。助けるべき人と仲間に追われて逃げ場もなくて誰も救えない。自分自身も。
That was the first time Wadase had heard her sound so hopeless. So much so that nearly broke his heart just listening to her. God damn it. So there's nothing we can do? Would it be better to just give it all up? But just as Wadase thought this, an image flashed through his brain.
私、諦めちゃダメ。
Oh?
最後の瞬間ま
Who's
で
this?
諦めずにあがいて。死ぬならその後にしよう。
Wadase gasped. What was that? Wadase had no idea. It appeared to be one of his old memories, a scene from his now forgotten past. Those words were nostalgic, sad, and comforting. They gave Wadase the strength he needed.
立花、諦めるな。
Tajibana, lock in. Wadase relayed those words to Kazumi.
まだ俺たちは生きている。救うべき相手もいる。だから最後の最後まであがいて諦めるのはその後にしよう。
Those words brought the silence between them back. All Wadase could hear was the sound of Kazumi's breathing. But when they exited the connecting passageway, Kazumi quietly spoke up.
はい。
Her voice was brimming with the will of someone determined to escape from this despair.
脱出の術を探るんだ。
Alright, I think it's a pretty good space to stop it. Holy fucking shit, dude. I mean, like, this game just... I think I pretty accurately said it at the beginning when I said that this game is just, like, action. There's always something happening. Okay, so... there's some very obvious things going on here. Such as the fact that clearly this particle amplifier has something to do with why people are getting so crazy and violent. I mean, it happened with Ukira, Solyu, Jun. It may have even happened to Natsuhiko at one point. We still don't quite... We're obviously still not quite sure about what's going on with him. Because we know that part of why Wadase went down to the basement specifically in the first place was to try and... presumably to try and confront this quote-unquote monster. But is Natsuhiko the monster? Is Natsuhiko being influenced or controlled by the monster at one point? You know, like, who's this talking to our heads? I assumed that it was Natsuhiko talking to us in our heads, but how could he have been doing that if he was, you know, pretty much dead? So maybe it's not Natsuhiko, maybe there could be so many things that are going on here. But for a comeback episode, this was definitely the best time to do this. Because holy goddamn shit, there is so much going on. So now we're being chased by potentially 3 people that are out for blood. We've lost Enna. We have no idea where Yudi is. We're carrying around 2 unconscious teenagers. I mean, and then we're 15 minutes away from the AD wearing off, and at the very least from suffering from the effects of the radiation, if not radiation itself. So we're kind of in a, I mean, there really hasn't been a point in this where we've been in necessarily a good position. But this is definitely one of the worst positions we've been in. So that's going to be it for me for this time. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like on the video and tell me in the comment section below what you'd like to see me play next. If you enjoyed this video or any other videos or series on my channel, then I highly recommend that you hit the subscribe button and turn on post notifications to be notified when a new one of these videos comes out. Anyways, that's it from me, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.